So, the topic of today's training, and it's just a short little session, but it's very profound, and I want to be very provocative today. So, the title of the session is Are You Asking the Right Questions? And even more importantly, are you asking any questions at all? And so every Tuesday we have these Q&A sessions, and I invite you to come on into these sessions with questions, with thoughtful questions. I'm going to talk about what thoughtful questions really are. And it's in fact not even thoughtful questions, it's quantum questions. So as quantum conscious leaders, we want to get into the business of knowing how to ask quantum questions. Now you might be asking yourself, what does that mean? Well, let's have a look. And here's the insights. One of the fundamental capabilities of any truly great and successful leader is the ability to ask the right questions. Now, I've just covered the alternative to that. Some people are not asking questions at all. In fact, we've been through recent periods in our history in the last several years when people were not asking questions about anything. They were accepting everything that happened to them and not asking questions at all, let alone the right questions. So it's very difficult to determine how to make decisions about your future and how to get insights and solutions if you're not asking any questions, or more importantly, if you're not asking the right questions. And here's a great quote from John Wheeler. I love John Wheeler, theoretical quantum physicist. I've read a lot of his stuff. Very insightful guy. And the quote is, the minute you can state a challenge correctly, you understand 90% of the challenge. But haven't we all been programmed? And it's just not our fault, seriously. It's not our fault. And so this is not Glenn blaming or shaming. It's absolutely not. We have all been programmed to try and get to the solution immediately without asking any questions or without doing any research. We just want the answer. And we have a tendency to believe people. Sky put up a quote on this morning in her, I think it was this morning. She said, don't believe everything you read. And she's making a very good point. People have a tendency to think, oh, you're the guru, and so therefore I should believe you. Well, the answer is don't. And that's not being skeptical or cynical. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is do your own research and research well. And in the inquiry of that research, really explore so that you get an understanding of all the different opinions, because everything everybody says in books, in posts, in their channels, YouTube or Telegram or wherever, is one person's opinion. Now, they may have done a lot of research on that, which gives them credibility, but it's one person's opinion. And I'm challenging everybody here to go and on your own exploratory, do your own research. Get better at asking questions, and the right questions. We're going to talk about what that means. But also, it's very interesting. This is why I say the session this morning is quite profound. It's very interesting. And I completely subscribe to this idea. It's in the inquiry, when you're asking correctly about things, revelations happen, both externally and internally. So what's internally? You start to get insights, which means you're activating and developing your intuitive powers. And many of you heard me talk about this a lot, that in many cases, when I'm seeking solutions to challenges, I go within. And so I'm not immediately running out there and going externally and doing all the research. I immediately start to seek answers from within. And that means I've got to stop being busy. I've got to slow down. I've got to be still. And I've got to be able to ask myself the right questions. And I do. I ask myself questions, and mostly I do it just before I go to sleep, which means that my non-conscious mind, that incredible powerhouse, the comparison of the two, and I'll talk about this again. The conscious mind, in terms of bits per second, neuroscientists from MIT found this out. The conscious mind works at about 2,000 bits per second in terms of, if you related it to computer speed. The non-conscious mind, some people call it the subconscious or the unconscious. I prefer to call it the non-conscious. It's a bit more respectful. Operates at 400 billion bits per second. So why am I spending all my time in my rational mind and not spending much time in my non-conscious mind, my emotional mind, my intuitive mind to get answers? And so I do spend a lot of time developing my intuitive powers to get into understanding that the answers have a tendency to come to me. Insights comes to me. Have you ever been standing in the shower and you're not thinking about anything, and all of a sudden you'll get a great idea? Where did that come from? It came from your non-conscious mind, which, by the way, is connected to the field of all answers and all possibility, the quantum field. It's connected to the Akashic records, which has a record of everything past, present, and future. And so you're opening, you have actually in the shower, or when you're going for a walk, or you're just sitting on the beach, and a great idea comes to you, it's because you've calmed down that busy, crazy, beta brainwave monkey mind, and you've probably gone into an alpha state, an alpha brain state, an alpha brainwave state. And if, before sleep, the reason I do it before sleep is because I go into a theta state of mind, which is just before delta. Delta is when you're asleep. Theta is when the doorway between your conscious mind and your non-conscious mind is wide open. And so now all of a sudden I've got access to this incredible resource. And what am I doing? I'm asking this incredible resource a question. And then then I go to sleep and I allow this incredible resource, which is working at 400 billion bits per second, 24/7 on my problem and providing me with a solution. And then I'm just patient. I just wait. And if I'm waiting in a way where I'm not going into beta, I try to spend most of my time in alpha. If I stay in alpha, then the answers are going to come to me. And that's what people call intuition. And, just to remind you, there was a study done at Harvard with their top 3% alumni. That's the top most successful leaders on the planet, chief executives who were successful over long periods of time. And they did a little bit of research and they asked them a question, said, what are the two capabilities that you have that you believe have contributed the most to your success? And the answers were, one, being visionary. What do I talk about all the time in terms of leaders? Is that you must be able to clearly articulate and understand your own personal vision. And it's not about creating it. It's not about discovering it. It's about remembering it because it's already there. And where are we back to? Going back within, being quiet and going back within. And so they said being visionary, number one. And number two was developing and trusting their intuition. The two key things. Now, that's a study from Harvard that I actually give credence to. And so those people know and understand that they are in the process of finding solutions to a problem, to their challenges, by being still, by going within and listening to the insights and the wisdom, the enlightenment that comes to them when they're sitting there being quiet and inviting and allowing the answers to come. And so let's get back to this statement. The minute you can state a challenge correctly, you understand 90% of the challenge, which means you're already in the territory of solution. But there's more to it than that. And let's get into this, the progression. Most major and lasting innovations specifically stemmed from the ability to ask the right questions. And so real breakthroughs in humanity came from a process of asking the right questions, but there's more to it. The questions we ask are determined by our way of thinking, and more importantly, by our way of feeling, our intuition, but also by the research that we go into. Because as we start to get, these insights and this wisdom, both from internal and from external, which means actually doing the research as well externally. And so you want to do them both with as much enthusiasm as possible. You're starting to go into this process of how you think, the progression of your thinking. And we all want to be a whole lot better at using our brain, don't we? Using our intuition and using our brain as well, and how we feel about it. Now, we're starting to get into the realms of the quantum because we're starting to talk about our emotional state and our feelings. Um, and remember, what we are thinking and feeling creates our experiences and material reality. So think about this for a minute. In the process of asking questions, you are already creating the solution. So shouldn't you be careful about what questions you're asking? I mean, it's one of these incredible quantum paradoxes. We create the reality of our experiences by the questions we ask and the procedures we undertake to find the answers to them. And just have a look at this quote from Werner. What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. Now, Werner Heisenberg is a very famous quantum physicist. Let me say that again. Just try and get your head around this. What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. And so, isn't he just referring to the double slit experiment that the early quantum physicists did that changed everything? That changed the way they understand what quantum physics really is. And a brief reminder of the double slit experiment was when they noticed that waves turned into particles simply through the process of observation. And so the waves continued to be waves when the scientists weren't observing them. When the scientists were observing them with intentions, probably with questions in their mind, what's happening here? What's going to happen? I probably think this could happen or that could happen. And so there's intentions involved in the observation. Wave to particle, immaterial to material. And so through our intentions and our observation, our attention, we are changing wave, which is potential, into particle, which is material reality. This is the process of creation. And so think about this for a minute. Every thought that you have, every word that you utter, every emotion that you are feeling is a process of creation. So there's good and bad to this because creation is neutral. You can be in a process of creating, you could be in a thought process of vindictiveness or anger. What do you think you're creating? You're attracting vindictiveness and anger. If you're in a process, in a high vibrational state of saying, man, I'm really open to this, I'm really looking forward to this, I'm expecting outstanding solutions to this challenge that I'm in. I'm assuming, to use the language of Neville Goddard, I'm assuming an outstanding outcome to my level of inquiry. And so what are you already doing? You're creating the outstanding income inside the process of the inquiry. So what is the process? Finding the right questions often takes a great deal of exploration, thinking, feeling, and imagination. High vibration. And so haven't we been traditionally programmed to believe that a problem is a problem? Oh my God, it's a problem. Oh no, not another one. And so what have we been programmed to do? We've been programmed to create a solution that is not optimal because we're going into the problem in a low vibrational state and we're not asking the right questions because we're not open to that frame of mind. And so we're immediately in the process of trying to find a solution to the challenge, creating a greater challenge. I say to my wife all the time, there are no problems, they're just solutions. I mean, I just look at things and go, you know what, I'll find a way through that. I'm not the least bit concerned. In fact, I welcome it. Bring it on. This is great. Because in my calm and resourceful state, I am in the process of already creating an optimal solution simply through my vibrational energy and my openness to ask really good questions. It's more important first to look at the right questions than to look for the right answers. So again, we have been programmed to say, just give me the solution. When we should be saying, man, this is great, this journey of actually exploring the challenge and understanding the challenge and asking the right questions through the process of seeking the optimal outcome. I'm already in the process of creating the optimal outcome through my thinking, my feeling, my words, my thoughts, my reactions, my responses. I'm already in the process of doing it. So great leaders, quantum conscious leaders, welcome challenges. They don't even look at them as challenges. They look at them as learning experiences. How many times have I said, you don't make mistakes, you make a learning experience. The more mistakes you make, the more failures you believe you had. I don't even like this language because it's framing it in the wrong way. The more experiences you have that you believe are not optimal are of your creation. So you can't look outside and say you're the problem when the fact is, somebody else is the problem, when the fact is you're the one who is creating the situation you are currently in through the process of your thoughts, your feelings, and your inquiry, the questions that you're asking. Or you may not be asking any questions at all. And if that's the case, then I believe that's a case of capitulation. Come what may. No, you're the infinite divine sovereign creator. And so that is a responsibility that you need to take. Everything that's happening to me is happening as a result of my creation. Look in the mirror. What you're seeing is yourself reflected back to you. What you're seeing is, when I say look in the mirror, I mean look at your experiences, look at your life, look at everything that's going on. What you're experiencing is a reflection of who you are being, your state of consciousness. It's most important to first look at the right questions than to look at the right answers, because the first informs and reveals the second anyway. Take a moment to think about that. It's like when I was going through this stuff and writing this stuff, I was going, man, when they say it's a quantum paradox, I kind of get what they mean, because it's like a circular argument, isn't it? You're saying, well, what I'm thinking, I'm feeling, I'm creating, so therefore I'm already designing it in the process of doing it. Well, the answer is yes. And it all comes back to you. So ponder this. The thing for the quantum conscious leader is to ponder is not about what this solution to end with, not what solution to end with, but what questions to begin with. Let me say that again. The thing for the quantum conscious leader to ponder is not about what solution to end with, but what questions to begin with. Because that first question, we now know, will almost certainly both lead to the answer we are seeking and create it at the same time. And as we continue to ask the right questions in the right order, the answer will inevitably reveal itself in totality. So here's a big insight. The questions you ask as a quantum conscious leader require much thought, as does the energy you wrap around your questions, because in asking, you are already in the process of creating the answer you are seeking.